Okay, hello everyone. My name's Andrew Smale. I work for Smart 421. In a previous life, I did work at O2 and was involved in a project called O2 Money, which was such a rip-roaring success they closed it down last month. And then I went away to join a company called Monetize, who are very much at the centre of mobile money, mobile banking, and some of the slides today sort of pull from my time at that company. So this is roughly what I'm going to do, is talk about what is mobile money, where are we, all the channels and the architectures. I'm actually a technical architect, but in my day job. And then a little bit about where I think the whole kind of mobile money story is going in the next 5 to 10 years, perhaps. And one of the things that will come out is the differences between what's termed developed economies like the US and the UK and what is generally called emerging markets, so Africa, India, some parts of South America and so on. I did check on Wikipedia if there's a better term than emerging markets, but that seems to be the best kind of acceptable term for it at the moment. So, in the style of Have I Got News For You, I'm going to do some missing words. And our guest publication is the Mobile World Congress that's coming up in February next year. So, anybody hazard a guess, despite something of the first wave of mobile money services?
Global recession.
Global recession. I tried this out last week at Smart 421 office, and they said the disappointing failure. And that's kind of where I would come from. You know, how many people actually use mobile banking? How many people actually use mobile money? Incredible success enjoyed by. Incredible success. Hang on a minute. You know, I don't quite remember that. And the second one is more about the technology side of things. There's something of NFC-enabled handsets.
Promise.
The promise of. Okay, that's quite a positive thing. I would say the dearth of them. You know, where are they? Yeah. The proliferation of NFC-enabled handsets. Hang on a minute. You know, who's hiding them all? And this is the actual kind of keynote at next week's conference. So I wasn't making that up. Is there's a lot of hype around this area. So if you look on the Apple App Store and you just look at finance, there's millions of applications that are now categorized as finance applications. But you look a little, tiny bit closer at this, and okay, you've got the big boys, you've got the banks, you've got the Lloyds, TSB, NatWest apps that Monetize produce the NatWest apps, and HSBC, some of the big banks, you've got the PayPal. Okay, they're really doing some financial stuff with integration and so on. But a lot of these are things like, you know, check my expenses. We have to enter all the data in for a little mobile app, and then it does a bit of calculations or whatever. Things like fuel log, and that's, you know, that's not really a mobile money app. So a kind of a definition, what is mobile money? So ignoring all those standalone kind of budget things where you just put numbers in and numbers come out. It's not just mobile banking. So mobile banking is where a bank has enabled their bank accounts to check the balance, check statement, maybe do transfers, so those not many do that. It's not just mobile commerce where you can go on and you can buy stuff, you can pay for stuff using PayPal on your mobile now. I think mobile money incorporates a lot of other things. There's mobile ticketing, you know, where you can get tickets for a concert or travel. Mobile coupons, so you go into Starbucks and you can trade your downloaded mobile coupon. Mobile money transfer is really big in some parts of the world, and I'll come back to that later. And on the sort of other side, mobile microfinance, so lending money to small businesses and paying it back in again, in these emerging markets, and wealth management. There is a growing sort of market for the more higher end services. So no discussion on the hype of anything would be complete without a Gartner hype cycle. So I'm sure you're all familiar with this. The interesting one is mobile banking, they actually say, is now on the slope of enlightenment. And I haven't worked in that for about 2 years, and it was a hard grind. I'd say that's probably about right. Mobile banking is now reaching the stage where the banks trust the mobile operators, trust the services that are on offer. Mobile money transfer, still quite a lot of hype around it, especially in developed markets, but not so much in emerging. Now, the NFC one is interesting because that was quite a bit further down here on the way to trough of disillusionment. And then people like Google got into the picture, and it's now gone right back up to the top of the hype cycle. Loads of stuff about NFC. In fact, to some extent, people seem to think that mobile finance is all about NFC, contactless. So I had a look at the history of communications and the history of banking over the years, and had a look at what leads what. And it's every time a development in communications leads the communication on banking. You go back 5,000 years to the very first alphabets, and about 500,000 years after that, somebody thought, I know, we'll start doing banking based on this newfangled alphabet thing. And the invention of paper took about 1,000 years before there were paper banknotes in circulation. It's gradually closing up as you go further through, to the extent that World Wide Web about 1990, online banking probably about 2000, so about 10 years there lag. So in the more kind of recent history, there's actually been, so mobile banking, I think, sort of first really came to prominence in about 2005. So the first mobile banking services outside of maybe Japan, where things were far advanced, came about then. But there is a definite divergence between the emerging markets of Africa, and I'll talk a little bit about a fantastically successful system called M-Pesa, and the developed markets, where you're going more down the sort of wallet route. O2 Wallet are doing one, and Google Wallet has just come out, and there's a whole load of hype around that as well. So talk a little bit about those two as examples. So the kind of services, and this is where we really see the difference. So in the Western economies, in the US and the UK especially, it's led by the high street banks. The mobile operators kind of, we're not really interested in all this financing. So the banks came to integrators, said, we want you to build us a service so our customers can basically have an ATM on the mobile. That was the original idea. So you couldn't actually sort of put your PIN in and it would spit out cash, but apart from that, you could check your balance, get a mini statement on the screen instead of on a little piece of paper. And one of the things that I thought at the time was really going to take off was to top up the mobile through the mobile banking interface. You can do that through a cash point, so doing it through the mobile seemed a logical step as well. In fact, only about 1% of people that took down mobile banking actually did top up mobile phones through it. It was never really a success. Excuse me. So in emerging markets, it was much more, there really isn't a banking infrastructure. There's very unbanked or underbanked, and in those instances, it was more the operators that actually led forwards with developments in mobile banking, and it was actually all based around the core GSM network. There's no 3G, no internet. SMS just about worked. And so I'll talk a little bit about technology called USSD as well, which underpins a lot of the service there. And one of the things they do is what's called cash in, cash out. So up until this M-Pesa system came about, as to use that as the example, if I was working in a city and I wanted to send cash back to my family back in the village 300 miles away, I'd have to give it over to someone like Western Union. They would then put it on a truck, carry it to the village, give it to the people at the other end as a secure package, and charge me 30% for the privilege of transferring that money. So there was a really great opportunity there for a mobile operator to do that. And Vodafone or Safaricom as it is in Kenya, did that. So the channels and technologies. So I've mentioned USSD and obviously SMS as well. I guess if you do any kind of mobile banking at all, hands up how many people actually are registered with their bank for mobile services. So that's not quite half. Put your hands down if that's only to get SMS alerts of balances. There's still a few. How many have got a downloaded app on their phone that they actually do their banking through? I guess you're probably a more advanced audience than I would normally expect. When I did this in the office last week, there were about 12 people and only one actually of that 12. Now, 10% is pretty much an overestimate of how many people actually download apps and do banking. But there's all these different channels and they all have different pros and cons, all have different problems with them. I mean, one of the technologies is SIM Toolkit. And the problem there is, it's as it says, it's a program that runs on the SIM card. So in order to get it, you have to change your SIM or have it built into the SIM when you put it in your phone. But that is the one that's used for M-Pesa. At Monetize, we've developed Java apps to download to the phone, put loads and loads of effort into making the security good, even on the early Java handsets, added an encryption layer and loads of good security stuff, and covered something like 2,500 different flavors of handset. It was only when the iPhone came out that anybody bothered to download the app and actually use it. It's convincing people that it's the right thing to do. Brew, I don't know if many people even heard of Brew, but it's quite big in the States, Qualcomm, and they have a different sort of way of downloading apps to the handset. They were really sort of an early forerunner of app stores, really. So you had got to deal with all these different technologies. There's lots to do. And so sort of the early mobile banking architectures, banks went out to people and said, can you build us a text messaging service? We want to send alerts. And then they may have gone to someone else and said, oh, can you build me a Java app that will link into our bank accounts? And then they may have come to somebody like Monetize and say, can you link into our ATM switch, which was the technology used there. So as I say, it was ATM on the phone, and that was more across a set of banks. There was, until the iPhone, anyway, certainly not much of a push to allow banking through the normal browsers on the phone. They just weren't considered secure. It wasn't really usable either to just go to the bank's interface on the phones. And to compound this even worse, one bank did one thing, another bank did another bank did another bank did another. And you've got the classic kind of siloed architectures of development. Lots of money spent, not many people using it, not many people understanding it. And this is really why, and this is why mobile banking and mobile money generally is difficult. It's not easy to do, because on the left you've got all the mobile side of things, the operators, the manufacturers, the app stores now. On the right-hand side, obviously, you've got the banks themselves, the card schemes like Visa, MasterCard, payment networks, ATM networks like Link, VocaLink. Anybody's ever had to deal with VocaLink to get anything done? You know how difficult that is. And the merchants themselves, And so in the middle, you've got, the software applications and us poor integrators. So there's a big job we've got to do to actually try and smash down these walls and get these what should be cooperating, but in many ways are competing partners actually talking the same language and focusing on security, sort of convincing the guys on the right that the guys on the left have got good enough security, reliability, so I want to check my balance any time of day. I want to be able to transfer money any time of day. Interoperability, so that's the bit about get away from the whole silo thing where there's if I've got one bank's app on my phone, I have to download another app, or text is totally unrelated to the other kind of channels. And trust, so building up trust. And I think the guys in the middle, the systems integrators, actually have a great piece to play in building up the trust between the others. So banks talking directly to operators doesn't seem to work very well, and vice versa. But if we got really good trust relationships with the guys in the middle, then we can do that. Now, I talked about security a little bit. The number one reason why people didn't use mobile banking, and this is a survey done by Future Foundation in 2010, was security. So worries about security. My phone isn't secure, I can't do it. So addressing that is, will go some way towards helping with the problems. So how do I see the future of architecture is much more common interfaces, common APIs. There was already a banking interface called IFX, which is a web service-based interface. Not many banks use it, using common integration layers. And actually, the view that text services are somehow different to what you run on an app-based phone like the iPhone is nonsense. It's slightly different technologies. On the iPhone, you get a push notification, not an SMS perhaps, but it's the same kind of services at the end of the day. You get an alert if you've gone over your overdraft balance or whatever. So one of the things that I think is coming and will simplify these things is the whole ubiquity of HTML5 as a technology, and use the banking interface as develop a really good, strong HTML5 based user interface that can then be rendered either as an app or directly on the browsers that support it. And who knows what's coming in the future. There's Windows 7 now on the Nokias, downloadable apps on Windows and whatever. But the key point is who's going to actually take this slice of the pie in the middle, who's going to actually do all this integration and standards and drive that forwards. And there probably will be new emerging companies come out of this. So that's all kind of background and where we are. Talk a little bit about that M-Pesa system. It's developed by a company called Sungentia, I think, for Safaricom in the first place. Kenya, big country in East Africa. Population of about 42 million people, roughly 18 to 20 million adults who can take these services. The growth here on the yellow curve, the first cell phones came into use in about 1999 in Kenya. Fixed lines, right about the same time. Fixed line is this black line along here, so there's no fixed line really, there's no internet from a fixed line point of view. So the growth of cell phones and the growth of mobile lines is pretty much exponential. It's grown up to almost saturation really in Kenya within 10 years. The M-Pesa banking system, this is an example of the M-Pesa, it's so common that it's everywhere. Over there you've got the M-Pesa, is more pertinent really than any of the mobile networks themselves. So these are the same kind of places where you top up your phone, you do your banking. Pesa, by the way, is Swahili for money. So this is mobile money, M-Money. This is quite an old graph, but I kept it in because I quite like the way it shows that rapid growth from when it was first put out in 2007, reached 40% within 2 years. Since then, updated, it's reached about 14 million in about July 2011. So absolutely fantastic growth of this mobile money service. Amazing. So how does it work? Well, you have to build up an ecosystem around it. So, they've termed this sort of general term of a mobile virtual account. It's a bit like a wallet, but it's not actually living on the phone in the way that NFC is. It's within a system. So it needs to be backed by a bank. So you need to have a bank that holds the real money in a trust account. That trust account has certain rules around it. It can't earn interest, for example, things like that. So the MVA makes the partnership with the bank. And through that, they then have interfaces out to other banks. People can buy in or transfer money to other banks within the big city. So you then sign up what are termed super agents within that big city, and they in turn try and go out to the towns around the city and sign up agents. And Safaricom, I guess, had a big head start on this because they already had the agent network for doing mobile phone top-ups, and they've kind of built the ecosystem on top of that. So there's a lot of training goes into becoming one of these agents. You have to become trusted, you have to sign up, you have to put some of your own money into the system. And pretty soon it grows up. You've got your super agent in the next town where there may be a bank, super agent in the next big town, and super agent in the next big town, and it all kind of fans out to the agents. So the growth of the number of agents pretty much follows, or slightly leads, the growth in the number of users. And it's something like 80,000, I think, at the last count, registered agents of M-Pesa in Kenya. Okay, SimCity. Right, so an example transaction. So assuming O2 Money could launch a similar kind of person-to-person wallet system, how does it actually work? What's the need for it? So if I'm an agent, I buy into the mobile virtual account. I put £900 of my real money in. So I've had 1,000, I've gone down to 100. Now I've got 900 imperial credits, or whatever you can call it pounds, or you call it pounds hash or whatever. It's not real money. It's kind of like your prepay phone balance. And I also open up a fee account where I get my fees. This is how the ecosystem actually works. So Auntie Brenda and nephew Chris, so she can come in to me as the agent. She can either give me 20 pounds, or if she's already got an account, which is the case here, she can sort of say, I want to send 20 punds to this guy Chris, who's also on the network. The debit 20 comes off Brenda's original balance of 90, and it will go on Chris's account current balance of 10, but less a fee of, say, 10%. So the fees deducted, I've now made 2 in my fees. Brenda's down 70, Chris is up 18. Now this may seem like, oh, well, why would I want to do that? And in this country, yeah, it doesn't make sense really, because there's lots of other easier, secure ways to send. There's still checks around, you can do bank-to-bank transfers. Most people have got bank accounts. You've got prepaid cards, like the old O2 Money card, you can transfer on. In the emerging markets in Kenya, this just wasn't the case. And people quite happily would pay, it's not quite 10%, I think it's 5, maybe 2% for the various transactions. And so pretty soon, the agents can build up quite a good amount of commission from buying into this thing. And everybody's happy. All the punters are happy because they've got a better way of sending money. You don't have to have lorry loads of cash traveling around the country. You have to have a certain amount of cash flow, because there's many more people putting cash in the cities than taking cash out in the town. So you have to have a certain amount of cash flow. But there's also some flows the other way using this system. So it lessens the bank's likelihood of being robbed, basically. So the lorry there was a big problem, lorries loads of cash being held up, and a lot of corruption around that area. So it's lessened all of that. Even the government are happy because they can tax these transactions. These transactions are now above the parapet. People know they're going on, and even the government can make money. So the technology that lies behind this is a thing called USSD, and if you've got a phone, you can type in this code, star hash, go make a call, go star hash 06 hash, and click the call button, and you'll get back your IMEI, your handset identifier. That's an example of USSD in action. It's an absolutely common, ubiquitous data service across all GSM networks. And it's part of the signaling, actually the core signaling part, which again, not a lot of people actually know about it. Everybody seems to know about SMS, and not many people know about this. And one of the good things about it is this is in your home network. Even if I'm in roamed onto another network in another country, even I can still go back to my home network with the code, and it will still route it through, and it will work through the core network. And the way that's opened up is you have a thing called a USSD gateway, and so all the operators that put this kind of thing in have got a USSD gateway, and certain codes, say 2247, so B for bank 24/7, would route through to the USSD gateway. And USSD gateway can then do the conversion into more common IP network type stuff, XML, HTTP, and so on, and actually serve that request, and then send the USSD response back. So you imagine the way you do your prepay balance. If you've got a prepay phone, you type whatever it is, *#100 or whatever it is on the OT network, you get back your balance. You could do exactly the same to get your bank balance. Just needs the integration bit sorted out. And the other thing about USSD is it can support sessions. So you can kick it off, it can come back with a little menu, reply 1 for your balance, reply 2 for a statement, reply 3 to top up your phone, and it works as a session. Not beloved too much of mobile networks because it does tie up the core signaling network that's used for creating calls. So, okay. So the other thing, contactless card, is it NFC, near field communications, or the other term is contactless. So you just hold it within about between 20 and 4 centimeters of another NFC enabled device, either a reader or another phone, and the communication is done over that short distance. The frequency is about 13 megahertz, so it's a different radio frequency to the main sort of mobile channels. So I know too many have been talking about this. Came out in September, and there's already a little. I like some of these statements. So near field communication has already arrived in the UK. Sort of. So there's still a lot of hype around this. People aren't really sure, but yes, there are new handsets coming out. So Google have unveiled this new Samsung Nexus. BlackBerry are getting on the act. Good old BlackBerry. They've got NFC phones. Nokia apparently going to launch a whole load of new NFC phones in the next year. And the real kind of threat, right, is Apple. So Apple have now patented what they call SIM within secure element technology. So Apple are well on the way to doing NFC next year. If not next year, then the year after. And Google is another one. I talked about Google Wallet. So Google are now making a big splash around this whole wallet thing. They've launched it in the US. There's already people raising security concerns. Verizon have already banned it. So they've gone ahead and just done it without all the trying to get the agreement of everybody else around them, basically. And that's the way they operate. Who's to say? So this is sort of blown up the mobile phone at a very sort of schematic level. So up here you've got your normal interface, the radio interface where you make calls and so on. There's another aerial, which is your other contactless modem. So it only works about 13.5 megahertz over 4 to 20 centimeters. And the other key thing of an NFC-enabled phone is this thing called the secure element, or SE. So the secure element is as it says, it's the place where you can securely store applications that are only or are mainly used against that contactless interface. You can interact between the secure element and a downloaded app onto the phone, but there's a whole load of standards and security around that. And the EMV stands for EuroPay, MasterCard, Visa working group have published a load of these standards under the term global platform. And to summarize some of this stuff, their roadmap, they've said the pace of how these things are taken up depends on the speed of the market development, the payment technology. So Visa are now rolling out NFC-enabled terminals in all their points of sale. So you don't have to put a plastic card into a reader and to put a pin in, you just tap it. So same as Oyster. And the bottom one, so it's a multi-application, multi-user, multi-brand system. So not one card. So you don't have a wallet that's this fat with all your cards in it. You can have one virtual card on your phone, and all your loyalty cards, your payment cards, and everything can be on that one secure element. So for wallet accounts, I think the best way to do this is you apply for it through the phone, or in this instance, you apply from your bank. A new card application. This is what's known as a Trusted Service Manager platform that handles the integration. That handles all the security. It's a key store and everything else. And that actually integrates with the secure element on the phone. That SE could be your SIM card, if the operators are willing to share that. With the Trusted Service Manager, or it could be an integrated into the handset, or it could be another separate, could be embedded chip, or it could be another plug-in, or it could even be a wraparound thing, as used in places like Turkey, have been really successful with actually wrapping around a add-on for normal phones. So, and when you use that, you come near an NFC tag here. There's the RFID picks it up. There's a credential check with the keys and so on from the installed app, and that can communicate. So the example might be, I want to make a payment, but I haven't got enough balance. That can trigger a communication with the normal channel and an app that's downloaded that says, go and top up my prepaid card that's on the NFC chip from my bank. So there's lots of opportunities for building these kind of things. NFC is not just for payments. I mean, you also use it the similar way that people use QR codes now. Instead of sort of shining your camera on a QR code to go to a website, you could tap, and that would trigger the browser to start up and go to a website. These NFC tags aren't that expensive. There's companies out there that produce them. So you could have an example where you go into Starbucks, you've got all your choices of drinks on the wall, and they've all got the little NFC tags. You tap it on there. By the time you get to the other end, it's ready, and you've paid for it, and you can just collect it. Okay, I'm coming towards the end, but just a word about these slightly more advanced services. So there's an oldish survey on financial and wealth management, and most people said that they liked, very important or somewhat important, the use of technology in their decision-making process for investments and wealth management. This is kind of totally the other end of the scale from simple transfers of money. And actually what originally was the focus of M-Pesa was this idea of microfinance. So the idea there was you would lend money to small businesses, if you like, or individuals, and they would pay it back gradually, and that was all done through the mobile phone. There's a company called Kopo, which does a lot of that and pay back the payments and so on. And the micro investors have recouped something like 95% of their investments through this. So, as well as a feeling of philanthropy that you're helping sort of emerging businesses and so on, you do get paid back as well. And there's a whole load of these apps, wealth management services, doing things like risk analysis, portfolio analysis, and competition, things like that. This is an interesting one that's come out by someone I used to work with recently. It's called a greed and fear index. So there's loads of these things out there that do things like check Twitter for sentiments, and then advise people on where to go next for their investments. So conclusions are, there's been notable progress by a lot of people in mobile banking, mobile money. Developed economies need a lot more cooperation between the partners. It's no good trying to sort of drive things through without that cooperation. Interoperability between the services, overcoming the security blockers. Going back to that old monetized slide, 20% of people still don't trust the security of it. Overcoming that, trying to advertise why. And in the emerging markets, I think the impacts there are going to be probably more regulation. In India, there's a lot of regulation from the Reserve Bank over there about the amount of transactions that can be done on a mobile phone. Rolling out things like USSD is going to be difficult because it does have an impact on the network services. And more probably you're going to see mobile wallets becoming part of like a core mobile offering in the way that you offer data, SMS, MMS, and a wallet. Be all part of your mobile offering. So as far as that's then really, but the strategy, and I quite like this analogy. So you could be in the mindset like the banks where you're trying to sort of protect things and you put up shields. That's the way the sort of Starship Enterprise, the Star Trek analogy worked. So you've got a shield against these things happening. Or you could put on your cloaking device, which is the way the Klingons worked, and that's more like an Apple kind of, I'm not going to reveal anything I'm doing. Okay, I've got to publish my patents, but one day it's going to suddenly strike and hit you with this. So you've got to be aware of this, and where you sit, where O2 sit. Okay. We've got about 10 minutes for questions. Or anybody still awake? Sorry, it wasn't quite as much fun as Andy's introduction, but there you go. Yeah, sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Apart from the role as the network operator, what role do you see for O2 in the ecosystem, and why do you think there's value in that?
What role? Well, part of that, from an NFC point of view anyway, is like the secure element and the provisioning. So whether you actually become a trusted service manager or partner with a trusted service manager, you could provision into that. There's also answering some of the security problems with this kind of thing as well. So actually work on convincing people that those services are safe, and actually working with the other operators as well on interoperability. O2 can themselves become a bank effectively as well. So that's one of the things you might want to look at doing. Sorry, I don't know if that. Yeah, sorry.
You talked about creating an ecosystem for mobile banking. I think that was a really good question before about the role that O2 can play in this space. How important is it to get people like the merchants and I think you call them merchant acquirers into the picture? And how do you make that happen?
Well, you partner with the sort of traditional payment rails like the Visas and MasterCards. There are certainly in markets like Turkey, there's Turkcell, because they've got quite a lot of the market, have done their own partnerships. So the payments there literally do sort of go straight into their bank account from the terminals themselves. So if you're confident enough, I suppose you can roll out your own payment terminals around as well. Then you still need the rails, the secure rails underneath that. But you can run that on something like Visas, I suppose. That's more of more widespread than just the UK. I think about that. Yes, Colin.
Do you think mobile devices are secure enough for this?
Out of the box, probably not. But that's why the application developers for this. I mean, that's an interesting question. For this, what is this? So if this is just getting alerts and we're already using them, I think everybody's happy with that. You put a PIN code on your device itself. For the more involved things like making payments, the tap and pay and all that, there's a lot of there are a lot of considerations around tapping and paying. The maximum you can do without going online is £15, for example. In some ways, it's more secure than your wallet because you don't have a PIN on your wallet. If you drop your wallet, you've lost your money and your cards. If you lose your phone, then you can actually phone your operator who will contact your trusted service manager, and they'll immediately disable all those applications, and you can get them all provisioned again onto a new SIM. So in some ways it's better. But it depends on the whole picture of the apps that are installed and everything else. And one of the things to be careful about is the whole, having the secure element completely embedded in the device, so and you've given everything to the device, or even in a sort of plug-in thing. You need to have some kind of control on that, I think. Does that kind of make you think more? Or?
It does. I would have thought there needs to be a lot of education about making mobile phones a safer environment to do mobile banking on generally.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's difficult to convince people that of the security there without giving away how you've made it secure, though. Because yeah, you could go into all the underlying protocols and the messages that are going to and fro to set up encryptions and all the rest of it, but then you're kind of giving away the way it works. So in some ways, the developers and the aggregators have to do that to the banks. So as long as you can, or the branding of the applications. So if the people that are marketing and branding the applications need to be convinced of the security, then they need to convince through trust their customers. And actually that's where mobile operators do have an advantage. Come back to the very first question, there's been quite a few surveys that have shown that, especially since the banking crisis, customers trust their mobile operator more than they trust their bank.
That's right, you've got to maintain that.
You've got to maintain that trust,
yeah.
and the first big security breach of a mobile banking service where people get money transferred out or in, it's going to make the headlines and it'll be right back to square one again. So taking all the care, rolling it out slowly, having the right partners for your system integration, your security, your key management, all really important. Yeah.
Currently, I do some banking online on my phone, and some of the things that they do to secure it is use these keys. So I have a password where I have to get my key and I have to enter my key, and I have more than just a username and password.
Right.
So that to me adds a level of confidence in it. And would you be looking at doing those types of things, or would there be a better way of doing that? Because the problem with that is I have to carry those two things around, which is a pain.
Yeah, what you're talking about really is multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing that some online banks, even on the internet, make you have a second device that they send a PIN to, and you put that PIN in on the internet to make it really secure. But Barclays, I think, use that kind of system. I don't know if that's who you bank with. HSBC. Okay. Sorry?
It takes you about 10 hours to get in.
Yeah. So there's a trade-off between all these security and multi-factor authentication and everything else, and the ease of use. So one thing you can do that sort of goes some way towards multi-factor authentication actually is when you register, the downloaded app on your phone automatically is configured with a global unique identifier on the phone itself. So that identifies that particular app on that particular handset. And if you're, then when you go online, if your username and password don't match that particular provisioned application, you haven't got that multi-factor authentication. So that's one way around that. Other ways are to use other kinds of factors, biomedical factors, so hold it up to your eye and have an iris check, a thumbprint, lots of things are possible. Although I mentioned the thumbprint last week and somebody told me a story about someone who cut off their mother's thumb and used it to... There's always ways around all these things. You can only make it... you can only make it so secure, can't you? I think I've... one more question? Anyone got one more? Okay. Well, thank you for listening.